Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Arguably one of the most historic properties in the city of Annapolis is the Naval Academy, referred to as the yard or the campus. And with history, sometimes, comes a lot of little secrets. And one of the best kept secrets, I think, in Annapolis is right here where we are. We're actually in the basement of Preble Hall at the United States Naval Academy Museum. And we're here with Managing Director Sarah McGlone and Senior Curator Tracie Logan. How are you guys?
We're good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for inviting me here. And like I say, I've never been in the basement of this place. I've been in the museum several times, but you've got all these signs. It's like authorized personnel and dark windows, and they're doing like curating and sort of restoration kind of stuff in the dark.
It's very serious.
Oh, yes, we're very serious people.
Do you guys grow mushrooms here?
No, thank God. I mean, our building is very well protected against water, fire, temperature, humidity, all of those things. It's very well protected to keep the artifacts safe. Mostly we have the do not enter signs because people would just kind of wander back and sit down in your office, and you would be like, hello, stranger, can we help you?
Right.
Like, I'm in the middle of this email. Did you have an appointment? Or they would touch stuff that we had out that we were working on, and we're like, no. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, it was funny when I came down here. She's the woman at the desk said, "Oh, well, you can just go to the elevator just down the floor. They're right there." I'm like, okay, and I go down. And I see all these do not enter signs, and they kind of look eerily similar to like biohazard signs.
Yes, they do.
And I'm looking around. I tap on the window, and they're like, somebody finally comes out and says, "Oh yeah, they're down here."
Yeah.
And we come back. But and it's strange in Annapolis. Two of the best kept secrets are obviously the Naval Academy Museum right here, and the Mitchell Gallery on St. John's. And the colleges in Annapolis are hiding these things, and we wanted to come here and talk to you guys about it.
Thank you.
So what is the history of this museum? I mean, obviously the Naval Academy and the Navy has a multi-hundred-year history. And how did the museum on the Naval Academy start?
The museum began in 1845, the same year that the Academy was founded. It's always had a collection, and for the longest time...
And you haven't been here since the beginning, right?
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've been here since 1845. They started collecting. There was a collection as soon as the museum, or as soon as the Academy opened, more or less. For the longest time, we were the only museum that housed a Navy collection. Prior to that, there were these things called Athenaeums and Lyceums, which were kind of membership-based organizations that had things that you would come and look at for scientific reasoning, kind of a curio cabinet sort of situation. And we got the bulk of our older collection from two of those, one from Brooklyn in, I think, 1892, and then one from Boston in 1922. And then we got our first very owned collection in 1849. We became the official repository for all captured foreign flags under President Polk. So we started getting a bunch of flags in. I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, we pulled a bunch of them out of Mahan Hall, over across the way where the auditorium is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those were all a part of that 1849 collection. So it's a lot of War of 1812 flags, and then later on, the collection expanded to include flags from the Spanish-American War.
Interesting. Well, I mean, so how did you guys get here? I mean, I know how I got here. I came up the steps and down the elevator, but as such an historic building and an historic institution, I guess institution, is that the right word to use for the museum? But obviously, we joke that you guys haven't been here since the beginning. But how did you come here? What's your backgrounds?
So I went to St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland. I'm actually from Minnesota originally, so I'm not technically a local, but I've lived here ever since college. And I got an art history degree while I was there. And then I kind of took a circuitous route where I waited tables and traveled and did AmeriCorps. And then I decided to get serious about life, and I got a internship job with the Navy doing contracts. That segued into negotiating international agreements, and then I kind of reached a point where I wanted to get back to what really interested me most of all, which was the art and museum world. So I got a museum studies degree after that, a master's, and found my way to the Naval History and Heritage Command. And I didn't even realize there was a whole wealth of museums and history to be had within the Department of Defense. But that's how I ended up here.
Well, it's kind of neat because it's just you've got one topic that it's not like, natural history or one of the larger Smithsonians or something like that. It's kind of neat. How did you end up getting here, Tracie?
Mine was slightly more direct. I'm a local, born and raised, and I went to college and then I went to grad school for public history, which is like museum studies. It's a little less based in theory and a little more based in community. And I had to move back home because of the recession. So I started volunteering at this museum, and that parlayed into being a contractor for about a year. And then I think my first job title here was curator of prints.
Sounds a bit like the Hotel California. Once you come in, you
can never leave. Yeah. Well, my predecessor was 50 years here, so still got a while to go.
Well, you do have some fairly big shoes to fill in there with Jim Cheevers, who was here for forever, and I enjoyed our conversations when he would always do the Navy graduation with WNAV. We'd just sit down there when they weren't yakking away on air. We'd just pick his brain and talk. Just a wealth of information. But
yeah,
you are the senior curator here. But what does a curator do here? Are you? Hey, I found this coin, and I think it might be. You look at that and decide whether is that your?
Yes.
Okay.
So. One of the things I love about this museum is that we are a small enough staff that we can all kind of be involved in many different aspects of keeping the museum and like running the museum. So what a curator does is they curate. It's a verb. So I am the person that is responsible for the things that you see on display and the text of that, and the larger overall narrative. But also, I am the person that donors contact when they have something that they are interested in potentially donating to us. They contact me and we have a little back and forth conversation. Then we raise it to our collections committee, which is about half the staff, a little more, I think. And we vote on it from several different criteria. And then we decide if we're going to take it or not. And if we take it, I get back to them. I let them know how to do that. And if we say no, we always do our best to try and give them other institutions that we think would be a better fit for their object, as opposed to just saying like, no, thank you, and walking away.
Interesting. Well, here's totally off topic. A lot of times we'll get somebody saying that they found like a Naval Academy ring, or a ring that may look like it's part of the Navy, or something along those lines. And I imagine there's a zillion rings that are floating around there, and probably very few of them are museum worthy per se. But is that something that would you be able to track something down?
Depends. For rings, the best thing to do is one, to check the inside for the inscription, and then you can talk to the alumni association, and then they can pull a full roster and find out the class year, and they probably have the most updated address for that person. We do have a collection of class rings. We generally take in the first class ring that we're offered from a class member, particularly if they are deceased. That tends to be the one that we put on display. And for the years that we don't have, we have replicas from Jostens or Bailey, Banks and Biddle, whomever. We also kind of like to have one backup just in case, but not more than that. We try not to have more than 2 or 3 examples per class year. Alumni also has their own collection of class rings, but other than that, we try to reunite them with their owner if it's just a general lost thing.
Right. Let's talk about some of the exhibits that you have here. You've got 2, I would say floors, but then I get in trouble. We call them decks.
Decks.
But and before we really get into that, but do your exhibits, are they restricted to these 2 floors, or do you take care of some of the historic stuff that is out there on the yard?
A combination of both. Primarily, our exhibits are the 2 floors here in the museum. We do lend things to other places on the yard. We try to lend to the library and to the superintendent, the commandant, and then the main office of the different schools,
Right.
like the Office of Humanities and Social Sciences or Engineering or something like that. So there are our objects available on display in other places on the yard. We take their care seriously. We don't necessarily impose our own verbiage on them. So the Jewish chapel and the crypt, they wrote their own text. We've read it and we approve of it, but that's not text that we forced on them to tell the narrative we want to tell. We are allowing them to tell their own story with it.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the exhibits that are here within the, I would say 4 walls, but however many walls there are here at Preble Hall. What exhibits, what can we see when we come here?
When a visitor first comes, the first deck is primarily the history of the Navy in general, in addition to the history of the Academy. So it sort of, a visitor can move clockwise around the gallery floor and see major naval heroes, battles, events of significance, and the artifacts that represent them. And on the second deck is devoted to our ship model collection, which is one of the foremost collections in the world. I think one of the highlights is the bone model collection, which is located towards the back of the gallery space, but it's a huge draw for people, and it's one of the biggest crowd pleasers. It's all of the models are constructed of bones that came from beef rations of prisoners of war from the Napoleonic era. So in addition to those permanent collection spaces, we are on the cusp of opening our newest exhibit, which is commemorating the 175th anniversary of the Academy itself.
Okay, and what's that one all about?
That one is both on the first deck and the second deck. And the first deck is more about the people that make up the institution. So we talk a lot about the midshipmen, the teachers, the demographics, some of the support staff that lives and works here on the yard. And we kind of went through our collection from the earliest things we could find all the way up until 2020 and filled in with photos and stuff where we did not have tangible 3D artifacts. But this place has such a sense of character and just its own little funkiness that I think a lot of people don't see or understand so much when you are outside the walls. You think it's all very straight-laced, but the mids they're college students. They're college students.
Yeah.
And they have their own quirks and they have their own traditions and they have this sense of ingenuity where they get anything done. And we wanted to represent that. We wanted to represent everything about them that we could and really give a sense of the life that happens here in the organism that is this school. And then the second floor is a little more traditional. It's more about the buildings and grounds and how that has shifted, how this landscape has shifted since 1845.
Right.
Because, it started as just bare land. There weren't even...
It was Camp Severn, wasn't it?
Yes, but even before that, there weren't even Native American settlements living on this portion of the land. So it was just bare land. Then it did become Fort Severn and Fort Madison just across the river. And then that, through some wheeling and dealing, became the Naval Academy. And then it slowly has expanded and through backfill and purchasing more land to be this little complex that we know it to be today.
Well, I understand that is that your 3D?
The 3D tour.
Or is that something going to be virtual?
That is going to be virtual. Well, so the second deck part of the exhibit is open for visitors. The first deck is not yet. We're right on the cusp of it being open, but we got waylaid by supply chain issues like everyone else in the world, very frustratingly. But our exhibits are so new that you can't even see them in our new 3D virtual tour.
Okay, well, it's interesting. It was one of my questions I was going to go into, that COVID's obviously, you said, thrown a wrench into the works with the supply chain issues. And as far as visiting goes, I know the yard was closed for so many months and everyone was sent home, and then it was a ghost town, and now it's back alive again. But as this 3D exhibit, is this a result of COVID, or was this something long in the plans, or a little bit of both? Or a
little bit of both. Credit where credit's due. It was really the first the first inkling of it was from our executive director right after we closed for COVID. But I think we kind of all decided that was not exactly the best time, given it being March of 2020 and everything that was happening then.
Sure.
So we kind of got backburnered, but never really faded away. And then I think Judy found you, right? She reached out to you?
We were at a national night out. We had a table set up, and Judy gave us a business card. And I thought, this is sounds like a person who can put all of the pieces together to produce the 3D tour. That it's one of those things that modern museums have. We didn't have it, and then it became even more crucial during COVID, when it gives people a chance to see.
So the 3D exhibit display, I mean, is that just a 3D tour of the museum?
More or less. It's pretty self-guided. So it is both floors of public display, and you can just, it's super cool. You can wander around, you can click on stuff. It gets so detailed that you can see the text on the walls. We'll have some pop-outs where it provides more information about an object, but it's not just repeating what's already there. But yeah, it's super neat. And we get a lot of international visitors. So I think it will be interesting to see on the back end, the analytics of who visits this site and who does our 3D tour, to see if it is, again, more international people like I'm kind of expecting, or if it's maybe parents who haven't had the chance to come out and see their kid, and so they want to see the museum at least.
There's been so many things out of COVID that have really expanded what would typically be a small audience into a global audience. We've talked to, the opera, and we've talked to the symphony here in town. And, at best they would get 600 people in Maryland Hall, 4 times a year. And now all of a sudden they're having 10,000 people tune into a performance, and albeit they're not paying, $70 or $80 to be at the performance, but they're able to get exposed to, what we have here, which is certainly something that you guys are able to. Now, this is available, I'm going to presume it's going to be available at the website, which is actually usna.edu/museum.
Correct. It will be available on our website. It's not quite up yet. So yeah, our website is publicly accessible. There's no firewall or anything, I think, in the way. And I'll make a big, nice little landing spot for it for everyone to see. And then, yeah.
Let me just clear a rumor, and this is just from the people that are listening here, is that I get a lot of my friends to say, I live in Annapolis. I was over on the Academy. They're like, how'd you get on there? Like, this is some big secure base. And I don't want to say that it's not secure, but it is. But this is a public college. It is publicly accessible, unless there's something that says it's not. COVID or, I know 9/11, they shut it down, and then any number of different things. So folks that are coming into Annapolis, even though there is a wall and there are fences and there's, mean-looking guys with guns and sandbags, you can get in. You just need to show a proper ID.
Yes.
And you can walk in, and I do recommend everybody to do it. Certainly the yard is beautiful. You can't get any better vistas, and especially in the spring. I was just walking around saying, okay, can't wait till the daffodils and the tulips come out. But and you've got the museum, you've got the athletic events that are open. I mean, so this is not a closed campus, and they want you to explore it.
For sure, we definitely want visitors. We do get a fair amount of people who do the tour through the visitor center, and then they come here. And we won't know really what the effect of COVID was on our demographic numbers until the end of it. But I think, and absolutely no shade to the Naval Academy when I say this, but I think closing Gate 3 to the public might do a little bit, hit us a little bit, just because it was so close and right there. And then it's easier to get into the athletic events and easier to get to the concerts and stuff through the Gate 3 gate.
Right.
But it is still open through the Gate 1 gate, which, all you have to do is show a government ID. Most places, I think, are switched over to the real ID, and that's what they're requiring, or a passport, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can walk in, and then you get to walk the entire length of the yard and see everything, all the fun houses, all the beautiful buildings.
You get your steps in. Else. That's Not a problem there. Well, with a lot of history and stuff that goes on, there's a lot of times there's urban legends that go on. I mean, have you guys heard? Are there any urban legends that you can either debunk or say, oh yeah, that's not an urban legend, that's the real thing? Or is there any kind of intrigue that goes on in here that you're aware of that's a good story?
I don't know. Do you have anything in particular you're thinking of?
I don't know. I doubt that John Paul Jones is really in the chapel and in the crypt of the chapel. I mean,
Well, we can't debunk or
Neither confirm nor deny.
right. But there is word that there are some ghosts in the building. I have you ever seen any, Tracie? I have yet to experience any.
I have had 2 unexplainable encounters, we'll say, and you can choose to interpret however you want.
I'm not opposed to believing that. I've got a story I'll tell you when we're done that really freaked me out. So I totally believe that. I hear the hospital has its own share of...
I'm sure the hospital does.
Up there as well. And, the one thing I love about the Naval Academy is that you learn something new pretty much every time you come here. I think if you turn around and look and dig a little bit deeper, you can we know the big things. We know, about the Herndon Monument, and we know throw the covers in when they graduate and everything else. Just last summer, I learned that the Triton Light has a vessel in the bottom base of it.
Huh.
See, look at this. I'm teaching you something.
I didn't know
and
that.
You know what's in the vessel?
What? Water.
Samples of water from every 7 sea.
That makes sense.
I know. If we had just taken a minute, we could have guessed it.
Who knew?
So when they get their class rings, one of the things they do, they dip it in a converted binnacle off an old ship, and they dip that in the water of the 7 seas, some of which we have a small bottle of here in the museum. But yeah, that's one of the things, that's a tradition that weds them to the Navy, is that at ring dance, their ring is on a ribbon and they dip it.
Well, the traditions that are here at the Naval Academy are just fantastic. And, some of the more public ones, but the smaller ones, you hear about how the underclassmen weren't allowed out by the gazebo, and that was where the firsties went to court the townies.
Yes, when it was Lover's Lane.
And just talking to some people that are in town, I know I spoke with the folks that own Gibson's Lodging and about how midshipman girlfriend renting rooms and the midshipman climbing the fence to get out, to get out and whatnot. So there's some wonderful history, and I would say that certainly if you're on the yard, the museum is the place to start.
We certainly think so.
You're biased, but I say that too.
We're biased, but also we're the place that's going to provide you with the most context as you see the rest of everything, so that it makes a little bit more sense.
True. Well, how do we get in here? What are the hours? And obviously we talked about the website, which is usna.edu/museum.
Visitors should, like we talked about, come through the visitor center, which is at Gate 1, have an ID, and be ready to walk through a metal detector, and then make your way towards the museum. So look up and follow to where you see the chapel dome, or sort of kitty corner from there. And at the moment, we are closed on the weekends just due to some COVID staffing issues, but that is only temporary. So be sure to check back on our website and social media outlets. Otherwise, we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, closed every Tuesday, just to do upkeep, cleaning, exhibit builds, that kind of thing.
Neat. Well, finally, as we start to wrap up there, Tracie, as the senior curator, what would you love to see in here that you don't have?
Oh,
is there something out there?
How much time do you have?
How much time do you have? I guess I can answer this from 2 different points. One, we're about to start, once 175 is up and open, we're about to start a small refresh of our first deck, where we're going to kind of recontextualize some of the objects that are on there, trade them out, that kind of thing. And so we'll tell a little bit of a different story. But I would really love to see more things in our collection from women graduates, from graduates of color. I think those are stories that, they're newer stories, so people maybe are not ready to part with their objects, which completely understandable. But I think that is a place that our collection is kind of lacking. And I think that as we move forward, that's going to be more and more what the brigade looks like. We're going to be way more multicultural and have a better gender ratio. And so I would really like to see us start getting items from people who represent that so that we can then put them on display, and that future people who want to become midshipmen or the midshipmen who are currently here, when they come to the museum, they see themselves reflected back and they see that it is a place for them as well. I mean, also like the newer wars, which that's a terrible thing to say.
It makes sense because I mean,
the newer wars, the modern history.
As an entity, I mean, this has been a man's world for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
and we talked with and I'm going to draw a blank on his name, but the admiral retired that wrote the book on Herndon Monument recently.
Okay,
and his wife graduated. They both graduated in the same class, and it was the first or second class, I think, where females were admitted. Mm-hmm. And the genesis of the book was that somebody said, hey, it was an author that said, I want to write a book on it, and they worked together on it. And he said, oh my gosh, yeah, Herndon, that was just like the greatest freaking thing of my, I could. And his wife was like, what the hell are you talking about? That was the most miserable thing in the world. And then it evolved into this whole, how the females were treated and everything else. And he said it was just such an eye opener for him. And that was something so important to bring in. And he went in and looked specifically for the females throughout the years as it was, and how they've been accepted. I mean, and obviously we're not a 50-50 type of a situation as far as admissions goes, and it's getting better.
It's getting better.
It's enheartening to see, such a staid old thing changing with the times. I think it feels good.
Thank you.
And I think it's something that you'll see in the new exhibit when we do open it, because the way that somebody would walk through it starts out and it's the very traditional, generally white males, almost entirely white males from the start, and then by the time you work your way up to modern time, it's kind of an explosion of diversity.
Yeah. I know when I'm here at Herndon every year, I'm always cheering for like the little tiny female mid. It's going to happen sometime. It's just going to be amazing.
We have gymnasts, we have cheerleaders. They're definitely capable of it, and they're the littlest.
They're not afraid to scrap and get in the middle of it.
Get them up there.
I don't understand how they haven't figured this out yet after this many years.
Oh, every class is convinced it's them, that they have it, and they never do.
It's ego.
Oh,
is what it is. My thing is, you get the football players, the big guys, and the big girls on the base, and you just make this little three-sided triangle coming down, and then you send like the little female gymnast just to run right up and pick it up and say, okay, let's go get lunch.
I know.
But it's the big guys who want to get to the top.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, everybody wants to be an admiral.
When I was walking over here, I was looking at her and I said, it seems a lot smaller today than it.
Doesn't it? It does seem smaller on the days they are not climbing it. I'm convinced.
Are we turning into a kinder, gentler Naval Academy where we're shortening
I mean, not in that direction. Not in that direction.
Well, this is great. Come to Preble Hall. Check out the Naval Academy Museum. It is right on the corner of, I don't know what the road's, but
Maryland Avenue and Blake Street.
What is it?
Maryland Avenue and Blake Road.
Okay. Once the Maryland Avenue gates open, you just come right down. It's not open yet.
Not open yet. Fingers crossed.
Just go down past the coffee shop. It's on the left. Mm-hmm. But come in to gate 1 and stroll through the campus, stroll through the yard and see what it's all about. The landmark to look for is the copper dome that is slowly turning green, right adjacent to that. And it's a wonderful place. You want to go online to usna.edu/museum, see what they have. You want to keep your eye out for that 3D exhibit and tour, which sounds pretty exciting.
Very excited about it.
It's nice that you're living, that it's always changing and evolving. And this is great. This is great. I want to thank Sarah McGlone, who is the managing director, and Tracie Logan is the senior curator of the museum for today. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see the 3D thing.
We can't wait to show it to you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight, Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.